We are going to work in this unit on multiplying real numbers. This is pretty easy. Just sort out your negatives first. There's only three cases. One, positive times a positive, and that's a times. Let's see it over here too, equals a positive. Positive times a negative equals a negative. You want to know why? I don't know, it gets awfully existential at that point, so I'm just going to say it does. And negative times a negative equals a positive. There's the 3. Not that difficult to remember. So negative times a positive is a negative. 3 times 6 is 18. Negative times a negative is a positive, so I'm not going to write anything. 4 times 5 is 20. Negative 1/2 times 6/5 is a negative. And now, going forward, whenever I do a lesson with fractions, I'm going to always reduce first, because it makes your life a lot easier. So I know that 2 goes into 6 3 times. So there'll be 1, 2 here. There'll be 3 up there. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3 over 5. Do not write it as a decimal. Math people love their fractions. These are fractions, even if you can't see them. And I'm never going to do that again if I can help it. Put a 1 on the bottom, but 3 cancels nicely with negative 3 to negative 1. So positive times a negative times a negative. It's 2 negatives, and we know that a negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times a positive is a positive. So we get positive, which we don't write. 4 times 1 times 7 is 28. Negative times a negative times a negative is a negative. 15 times 2 is 30. And now we actually might have a decimal because we have a decimal in the question. So negative 0.5 times 4 times x. Well, what do we do with that x? Well, it just comes along for the ride. So we get negative 0.5 times 4 is 2 and x. And that's it. We also have properties for multiplication of real numbers. The properties last time were for addition. The commutative property will look exactly the same, except we have multiplications instead of adding. Associative property also looks exactly the same. We just set up A, B, C. But this time we put the parentheses around these two, and this time we put them around these two. Of course, if I did it differently last time, that's fine too, as long as you have them different on either side of the equals. We have identity property, which was 0 for addition. Well, now it's 1. A times 1 equals A. Property of 0, which is anything times 0 is 0. And the property of negative 1. Anything times negative 1. I put parentheses so you can tell the negative and the times are a little different. Is just the opposite. Negative A. That's it. Now, move on to the distributive property. Kind of a big deal. Got to make sure you know how to do this. You're going to be doing a lot of it in mathematics, and it's not all that challenging. You just can't make mistakes. Now, early on, I'll make the little arrows because we're going to multiply 4 times the y to get 4y. And then 4 times the 3 is 12, and it's a plus in between, so we keep a plus there. And that's it. A times b is AB, plus A times C is AC. And life gets a little more challenging. N times N is N squared. Positive times a negative is a negative, so we get negative 9N. Notice I wrote the 9 first. Number always goes first. 2 times 8 is 16. Minus 8 times n is 8n. And I thought here we always put the number first, but we also always want to put, we'll talk about this in a little bit, the whole term first that's got a variable in it. So we'll just rewrite it. Negative 8n plus 16. More on that later if that seems confusing. Don't get hung up on it. You'll get so good at that you won't even think about it. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. and I like to write as plus negative just to make life easy. Negative times 2x is negative 2x. Negative times a negative is plus 11. Practice, practice, and you'll get it in no time. And don't forget that we can combine like terms if we have multiple parts of a problem. So for example, here we have negative x plus 2x plus 8. Well, the terms, each piece is a term, so there's 3 terms here. 1, 2, 3. The coefficients are just the numbers that are out in front of anything with a variable. So this is a coefficient of negative 1. This is a coefficient of 2. There's no coefficient there because that's what we just call a constant. So, combine the like terms. Well, I like to do this early on when I'm not sure what I'm doing with colors. So let's find all the terms that are the same. Anything with an x to the first power is a like term. So let's just give you an example of like terms. 2x squared and negative 4x squared. X and 7x. AB, we'll call it 3AB, and negative 2AB. Anything with the same variables. So we say same variables. So in this case, and I'll use boxes for the ones that are alike, 3x, negative 6x, x, which has got a 1 out front, it's invisible, and negative 3x, and I'm always going to change these early if I can. And the rest are constants, but they're also terms, so I'm going to put circles around them, negative 4 and positive 2. And then we add them up. So 3 minus 6 is negative 3, plus 1 is negative 2, minus 3 is negative 5. So negative 5x, negative 4 minus 2, minus 6. And I like writing plus negative 6. Just makes me happy. So here's how the problem actually works. You distribute and combine. So we'll do this one first, and hopefully this is the last time I have to do those goofy little arrows. Minus 36. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 times n is negative 3n. So look, I've got 4n and negative 3n. Combine them to get 1n, or we just write n. Negative 36 minus 6 is negative 42. And that's it. Now that's tricky stuff, but practice, you'll get it in no time at all. Good luck.